Hey everybody, hello and welcome to the show. We are Is Today the Day Media. I am with War Spirit. My name is John, Jonathan of Vigilance. You can find our page at facebook.com/ITTDM. Okay, yeah, don't worry, the LiveCam hasn't been activated yet, so I was just getting some hand signals from War Spirit that he's good to go. So, pleasure to have you all here tonight. It is Memorial Day weekend. If you're lucky enough to be off, awesome. If you're not, then keep up the hard work. I've been there. I've done that. Let me have a looky here. Alright, let's go ahead and get the music off. Okay. Yeah, so we've got a lot to talk about this week. I'll go ahead and get the live screen on so we can go ahead and talk to you guys. Let me see here. What is going on here? Sorry, equipment's a little bit buggy today, it looks like.
A little wonky.
Little wonky. There it is. Hello, everybody. So, pretty chill day. It's been a long work week for both me and War Spirit. Very busy. Just, golly, just non-stop this week. I've got the flag, one of my favorite flags, moved out to the front there.
Yeah.
It's like the black knight and the yellow knight, because Taiwan is a country, and don't you forget it. We could talk about that right off the bat. A certain celebrity, this American icon, his name is John, like me, and I guess I'll have to take his place. What do you want to do, Spirit?
Let's open in prayer first.
Let's do that. Lord, thank you for bringing us all here together, Lord. Thank you for blessing us and keeping us safe. Lord, give us wisdom, keep us safe, and just keep us wise. Lord, inspire us this evening to say what you need us to say, Lord. Keep us brave in the fight as we go forward into stranger and stranger times, Lord. Thank you for everything you continue to do. Bless us again, Lord, and bless our listeners, and help us all see the truth, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
So, I
got a question for you. Is Taiwan a country?
I believe it is. I grew up believing it was. I didn't realize there was all this controversy.
It has a name, and they have their own flag, and they have their own pretty much government. But what happens when you call Taiwan a country?
You get in trouble, especially if you're famous. Like, nothing will really happen to me because China doesn't care about me. But maybe they will someday. The main thing is, if you're in a famous position and you represent America, that is, you represent our owners, our slave masters, China. If you say Taiwan is a country, you're gonna get a bit of red flags coming up, and that's the red flag of China.
Oh, I just heard that. Did you hear that, John?
What's that?
The telephone ringing? Because you'll find out later I'm John Cena!
Oh, John Cena. Here. I'll play the theme. Yeah. Oh, John Cena. I better turn that down before we get copyright striked. We own the rights to John Cena. Xi Jinping himself is going to run up. Don't you be playing that.
You don't do that, boy.
Jeez. Oh, man. So, John Cena, after calling Taiwan a country, then went about apologizing to China because China was very upset. So what happened was I don't know entirely the context of what caused him to reference Taiwan at all. But China was like, hey, that sucks, man. Like, don't do that. And there's a video online. In fact, let me pull it up while we're talking. But to kind of give you the context, John Cena goes about apologizing to the Chinese Communist Party, not just China as a whole, not like the Asian Chinese people. No, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, Xi Jinping, socialist hellhole. So
what it was is there was some exhibition fights, wrestling. They weren't real fights, but there was some exhibitionist wrestling that took on in Taiwan, and so he said, trying to advertise himself to the Chinese people that I'm going to be fighting in the country of Taiwan and all this stuff, on some kind of like Chinese social media.
Yeah.
And that's what pissed him off. And so then he gets on YouTube, and I guess apparently he can speak Mandarin.
Yeah, that's new to me.
And rattles on this. I'll
show the video. It's really quite the treat. Let me go ahead and pull this up for our viewers. You can join into Warspirit. Let me see here. How do I do? Let's see, LiveCam window captures. Okay. We're gonna go here. There we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this for you, audience.
你好，中国，这是叫西娜。我必须说，现在，在《速度与激情九》，我做很多采访，很多，所以在一个采访，我有一个错误，所有人问我，如果我可以用中文，速度与激情九人给我很多资讯 information。所以很多采访，很多 information， 我有一个错误，我必须说，现在就是很重要。我爱更尊重中国，跟中国人。我很抱歉对我的错误，对不起，我很抱歉。你必须了解，我。很爱，很尊重中国跟中国人，不好意思，再见。
Wait, what? What does that have to do with Taiwan? Oh, hold on.
He was apologizing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I get that. No, but like, so he was apologizing, of course, for calling Taiwan a country. That was his big mistake. He just didn't elaborate on that. That is the mistake, but he didn't elaborate on it. Yeah.
No. Here's the thing. He was told not to mention Taiwan. Period. So basically, he was asking for penance, for forgiveness to the CCP, the glorious CCP. And he knows, they know what he said and what he did, so he wasn't going to say it again.
Right. It's too funny, man. So I sit back, like, I quite like John Cena. Like, I never really was into the whole fake scam, WWE thing. Which I guess, if we look at it in that context, like, John Cena was never truly, like, any form of American...
Actor.
He's an actor. Like, so, like, I think a lot of people are, like, thinking this image, that, like, this character that he plays, like, America and all that, like...
Well, he plays... His character is a Marine.
Yeah, it's a Marine. And I get it. Like, his character is a Marine, and... Is it a Marine? I thought it was something else.
It's a Marine.
Okay, yeah. But anyways, his whole wrestling thing that he does, it's fake. It's, it's WWE kind of thing, like... And these things are... Yeah. Now, I would be absolutely heartbroken if Hulk Hogan's ancient ass did some crap like this, but... John Cena doing this is just kind of like... It's kind of like... I think a lot of people, especially kids, like... They might be kind of heartbroken at that, like... what is John Cena doing talking Chinese? That's weird. And why is he apologizing to communists? You know, I don't know. Probably kids probably don't give a damn. But
the majority of kids, and I say kids all the way into 20-somethings, aren't going to understand anyways. What's wrong with communism?
All right, they're going to be like, oh, I don't get it. Didn't they beat the Nazis? Yes, they did.
You fascist.
No.
They're even saying that they're so that was the big thing on the video that I watched with the Canadian pastor being arrested, the one that talked about get out Nazis and all this. So that was everybody's. They got hung up on this, right? All these young 20-somethings. And they're like, see, he's just a Jewish shill. He didn't mention anything about communism. He mentioned Nazis. You know what? It would have been better in Poland if the Nazis would have continued in power.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing. Like, the right wing is divided amongst itself. And honestly, there's a lot of young people who feel that, like, American conservatism is, like, boring. That's the only reason that they're buying into this, like, Nazi crap. I don't think they genuinely believe it, but they're like, well, I just want to be different. I just want to be cool. And like,
yeah,
you know, and that's really it. They don't really care about policy. They don't really care about learning just how nasty it is. To them, it's all like a big Hollywood movie. Like, I'm gonna be the cool, like, I'm gonna be Hitler, and all these like dudes who agree with me are gonna like marching down the street in their badass gray uniforms. No, it's the same pipe dream that the communists have, where it's like, oh, well, maybe I could be an artist and live in a commune, and, like, everyone will just get along, and, like, we can garden together, and it'll be so cool, like, every day will be like a weekend. Well, I'm sorry, comrade, but we don't have a need for an artist. Get to the coal mine.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Nazi society, what the hell are you doing here? What? You know, like, most of these dudes who, like, claim to be Nazis, like, let's say that, like, Hitler just showed up, right? Like, a time-traveling Hitler showed up and took control. He would be like, what? And he would, like, look at him and be like, you are inferior. You are disgusting. You are evil. You know, and, you know, probably just have them killed.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Nazism wouldn't have looked very favorably towards homosexuality.
Oh, there's that too. But most Nazis don't like gays. They act like gays, though. I mean...
Well, you know, I'm going to say, like, Antifa, you know, it's funny because they're like, anti-fascist, but they act fascist.
Well, oh yes. I mean, obviously, like, look at the liberals as a whole, right? It's so funny. It's like, we defeated fascism! Trump is gone! Now start with the mandatory lockdowns, because fascism is bad.
And we want to make you carry papers that say that you're worthy to travel.
Yeah. Papers, please. Isn't it funny?
Give me your papers. Maybe if you don't have your papers, we will cut off your hands, yeah? Maybe that will make you get your papers then, yeah?
Right. Exactly. It's like...
And then maybe I will cut off your Venus schnitzel, yeah? Maybe that will make you listen, yeah?
I mean, it's just so funny to me that these people preach about, like, we don't like fascism. They're totally fine with communism, though. And they, for some reason, people haven't valued this concept of freedom because they're, like, scared of it. Is another thing I'd like to say, because they're like, oh, well, if people have individual rights, like on the Nazi side of things, they're scared of people having rights to say things, period. Like, oh, hey, this kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You know, and on the communist side, they're just like, scared of people. Again, it's the same thing, actually.
Well, it's just like those idiots we ran into that we talked to for a while that ended up being Nazis. And their big thing was, and caveat to this, I don't agree with pornography, but their big thing was, well, you know, pornography just should be illegal and we just should ban people from doing it, you know? And I'm like, well, that's actually falls under free speech. I mean, I don't agree with it. And it's something in my life have struggled with
Yeah.
as a Christian, as a man of God.
And so,
And I hate it.
yeah,
I despise
absolutely.
it.
Like porn is.
But I am not going to say that as an American citizen, if that's what you want to do, if you want to flush your life down the toilet, go for it.
Exactly. And it just kind of goes into sin is sin. And it's funny, most like Nazis you talk to, even the ones I've talked to are so funny to me because they'll sit there like high as a kite and they'll be like, man, porn is such a vice, bro. It just keeps you dumb all the time, man. And I'm like, wait. Like you're hitting the bong, and then your buddy over here who agrees with you, your little toady, is drunk as a skunk. And then get me wrong, I love liquor, I love liquor. And that's the big reason that, like, when it comes to like pornography and that sort of thing, like, yeah, I think it's immoral, it's evil, but I also feel that people have the right to make their own decisions. So if I were to like be a complete alcoholic, which I have the total freedom to be, I'm thankful, but I'm not going to be. But I think I should have that right to be a complete and total alcoholic. Sure, that's my choice. I'm not hurting anybody.
And that's where I go more libertarian on that. Is like, I don't agree with any. Like, if you want to do heroin, go for it, as long as it doesn't affect me. If you want to ruin your life, I'm using this box over here, so that's Jonathan's right there. If Jonathan
yes, for you,
wants
for what
to
they
run
can
his
see,
life,
it'd be
the opposite.
Yeah.
If John over here wants to run his life, it's none of my business.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. Like, there's certain things, like hurting others. That's where I think law should come into effect. Like, because I'm not an anarchist. I think anarchy is stupid. When I was a teenager, I was what they would call an anarcho-capitalist, but it was
and there are consequences to your actions.
Yeah.
And for example, with that said, since I consider you my brother,
right,
even though you're younger, so you're like my little brother, I'm gonna beat the piss out of you if you do that.
Exactly. And that's all fine and good. So, like, it's one of those things. If people go about hurting themselves, but they're not hurting anyone else, like, and then people start talking about things like, well, what about kids, right? Should kids be allowed to do it? Well, no, but raise your kids is the thing. Mm-hmm. Like, people are always like, well, we need to ban this so people can't do it anymore. I'm like, I approach personally to teach people why they shouldn't. Well, why shouldn't you sleep around with every swinging phallic member when you're a teenager, an adult, and so on and so forth? Why shouldn't you do that, right? Because one, psychological irreparable damage. Secondly, STDs. Stuff like that. Why shouldn't I take crack cocaine? Because one, heart issue, all kinds of other stuff, overdose. How come I shouldn't do this or that or that? Teach people so they can make their own decisions. But as far as bothering people who aren't hurting anyone, that's what I want. So, like, I want the same rights that I want for myself for everyone around me. And that's what sets libertarians, conservatives, whatever frickin' label you want to put on us, Americans with American ideology, us, apart from the whole party tag system, is we don't want... Sorry, muted myself. It's like, we don't want to control people. We don't want to, like, force people to do anything or take away anybody's right to do anything. We just want people to have the same rights and liberties as we do, as well as the right to protect ourselves if people wish to do harm to us or the people around us.
Right.
And that's the big thing. It's like, if you were to simplify our beliefs, it's the right to bear arms for all races and religions, and that's about it. The right to bear arms is like the biggest one, because under all of these it follows. Like, I think that the Second Amendment should have been the First Amendment. You know what I mean?
without the two, you don't have the one.
Exactly. And so that's what I was saying. It's like, it might as well just be one, because the Second Amendment protects all the other constitutional rights. And
I understand what the Founding Fathers were getting at, is they were saying that freedom of speech is the most important thing that you can have for a country. And to back that freedom of speech, you have to have weapons, firearms. So I get what they're saying, but I agree with you. Like, if you don't have the firearms, you can't have the first. So they should have put it the other way.
But I don't think they were really expecting, like, I mean, they were expecting, but I don't think they were seeing it coming to how it's gone. Like,
they knew that it was an issue because under Britain started doing that. Like, they started like, hey, you guys got to turn your guns in. And that's when they was like, no.
And I also think they may have, and this isn't a bad thing by any means, I would have hoped the same, but it was kind of a hollowed hope, is that people hundreds of years after they were dead would have the same gumption as them to jump to arms the moment something was wrong. Mm-hmm. Which is what we should have done. And
if we was going to do that, we should have done it in the 1930s.
Exactly. We should jump to arms, like, all the way, the NAFTA or whatever it's called, the NFA or whatever, is that what it's called?
Not NAFTA.
What's NAFTA?
NAFTA is some European trade agreement thing.
Well, screw them. Jump to arms! Jump to arms! Screw NAFTA! I don't even know what that is, but shoot them!
NFA is National Firearms Act. It's an acronym.
Okay.
National Firearms Act of 1934. And that is the one that prohibits all kinds of, like, short-barreled rifles, suppressors, machine guns, all this crap that, in my opinion, should have never been made illegal.
Well,
so they didn't make it illegal. See, because they knew that the Second Amendment wouldn't allow them to do that. So what they did is they just put a tax on it so high, especially for the time, that it made it impossible for little guys like me and you to get it. Now, with that said, you can. $200 isn't the same as $200 then.
Right.
But when you get that NFA weapon put in your house, you are also giving the BATF free reign to search your home at any time.
Speaking of the BATF.
Good segue. I was hoping he was going to take that.
Right. David Chipman, our new head of the ATF.
Well, he's not official yet.
Okay. Our supposed new.
He is the hopeful.
Right. So I've got him up here on the screen.
They're going to be voting on it very soon. But the good news is there are even some Democrats that like their guns.
Yeah, which is good,
Yes.
And I'm willing to get along with those Democrats. You know what I mean? I kind of sit down. It's like, if you respect the right to bear arms, I got no trouble with you.
It's just like the lawyer and his wife, those ones out of, was it Missouri?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They kind of came back into
Democrats.
Popularity. I heard that the husband is running for a political office, I think in the county.
I did hear something about that, yes.
Anyways, David Chipman, I got a picture of him up right here. So David Chipman is the supposed going to be, maybe, the new leader of the ATF. He has shown great, I would say, hatred towards American gun owners.
Hatred, yes. And also, and this goes hand in hand with any leftist, but basically thinks we're stupid.
Yeah, he does.
He was interviewed, and they asked him, what about all these first-time gun buyers? Because there's been lots of them in the recent months. And he said, yeah, those first-time gun buyers, what they should do is they should take their new gun and put it behind the canned tuna fish and the jerky and wait for the zombie apocalypse and not take it out until then, because, I mean, come on, right?
Sorry, I was muted on the stream for a second, but I find the ATF, to kind of get what I was saying at, he's going to be the supposed new leader. He shows a great distaste and disrespect and hatred towards American gun owners and their right to bear arms, which he hates. And this is only fitting as he's been in the ATF for a very long time, as with that photo I showed you. Let me go ahead and pull that up again. That photo, if you don't know the context, I'll go pull that up from Podcast Prep. This photo here is David Chipman on the left nowadays and him on the right during Waco siege. This is him.
There.
He was in Waco siege, perhaps the largest blunder outside of Ruby Ridge that the ATF had ever done.
And I found out something more interesting today. I was waiting to tell the people and you. He's buddies with the Clintons.
Oh, he's got those eyes.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes. He is buddies with Bill Clinton. After this whole Waco thing, he actually got to go to the White House, and he got to meet the president and all this. And you say he just really took a liking to him, because I think those two, they share same young girl, tendencies. That's the rumor. Now, hasn't been proven, so this is all alleged. I don't want to get sued or nothing.
All right. So I noticed this picture here of ATF's. I've seen this one before. I've actually used it. So this is several ATF in their Nazi uniforms on Waco. I know this is a Waco scene.
Is that the one where they're dragging the dead body?
Oh, is that what's sticking out of the window there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Huh. All right, dirt nap.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Screw the Branch Davidians, but man, all the same, like 3 times more.
Okay,
screw the ATF.
Again, screw the Branch Davidians. 100% agree. Okay,
Yeah.
they went about it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. They had so many opportunities to stop bloodshed, and they took none of them.
That is correct.
They did this the wrong way. They went for full attack.
They did it the way they wanted it to happen. They were looking for a fight. They wanted a fight because they wanted to make an example of them.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Because, see, back in the 90s, people were getting pissed at the Clintons and all this other stuff going on, and there were militias popping up all over the nation. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
And they were getting scared. Not as scared as, say, putting a barrier around the White House.
Right.
But they were getting scared.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted to take this as an example and make them an example. This is what happens when you poke your head up out of the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And so I also have this, that strange gun we were looking at the other day pulled up now.
Any of our listeners looking at this either live or even later, message us on this, because I am confused. I'm a gun guy.
Yeah,
I can't figure out what the HE double toothpicks this is. It's got an M60 bipod. I know that. But the top looks like a 50 cal barrel, and the back doesn't have a pistol grip.
Yeah, it's strange.
I don't know what it is.
It's got a weird thing going on because it's not a bolt action either, but it's got like a.
No, it's definitely. It's either belt fed or it's semi-auto.
That's what I was looking at, because like I at first when I was looking at this on the phone, it looked like a box fed magazine, but now that I'm looking at it, it looks like a standard feed. So that big box, that big at the bottom, does look like a 50 cal, like a M82 mag. It does.
But that is not an M82.
Yeah, I'm just staring at this like, do you think that this could just be something?
I think it might just be a homebrew.
Yeah, either by the Branch Davidians or even knowing the ATF. Do you think they could have just made that up?
They could have. They could have thrown some crap together.
It could be like some weird helicopter gun they just took off of one of their vehicles and placed it there.
Speaking of helicopters.
Oh, yeah, speaking of helicopters.
So, this David Chipman, at the time, claimed that the Branch Davidians shot at and shot down one of the BATF's helicopters during all this, which was later obviously proven to be false.
Right. I was about to say, like,
And-
I'm a huge historian, and when I heard that, I was like, when?
Yes.
When?
It's proven to be BS. He just was lying because he wanted to make them sound like the demons that he wanted them to sound like. But my question is, because see, that's how I found this tortured gun image.
Right.
Because I was looking, I was like, do they have a 50? Because it said they were shot. The helicopter was shot down with a 50, and you were like, no, they had like an M60. It's the biggest. They had 308. And so
Yeah.
I'm looking, and I find this, and I'm like, well, that kind of looks like a 50. So what I want to know is, did they build this and just kind of glom it together so that way they could kind of go with his story at first? Of course, it didn't stick.
And it seems like a bit of, like, when 308s are illegal, like, the M60 machine gun was already hell of illegal at the time.
Well,
It would seem kind of strange for them to mock up a gun. I mean, that is kind of a far-fetched theory because I know they had, like, I think anyways, I don't see any M60s in the picture, but that's what I'm pretty sure is that they, like that one video you can find it.
The Branch Davidians had 2 M60s.
That's what I was saying, yeah. Because the one officer that, like, goes in the window, you've all seen the video of that officer, like, jumping in, then jumping back out because he's getting shot the hell up with M60s.
That's what I want to know, though. You have 2 M60. Were they not trained at all on those weapon systems? Don't get me wrong. I've never shot a belt-fed weapon, unfortunately, sadly.
Right.
But if I was trained up on an M60 and I had a buddy that was trained up on an M60, bring it on, ATF. Bring it on.
You know, I would be surprised because that truly was, like, in comparison of force, like, don't get me wrong, the ATF had soldiers, they had tanks, they had all that. But the truth is, like, yeah, trained with weapon systems. I don't think these guys were actually ready for combat as far as Branch Davidians are concerned.
I don't think they were really... They didn't have a soldier's mentality or warrior's mentality. Yeah. And I don't think they had very much training.
Well, I mean... Like I said, screw the Branch Davidians. Their doctrine, from what I could tell, was a very defeatist one, too, because it was like, well, this is it, we're gonna die.
Yeah.
So, like, I could see them being, like, very reprehensive to actually go about doing harm. Like... That
Kovesh, what's his name?
I don't know, the head guy, the dude with the pedo glasses that led the whole thing.
Kovesh?
Yeah, something like that.
He was a pedophile.
That's what I mean. He had the pedo glasses on and everything. But
yeah.
what
he
I mean,
slept with like 12 or 13-year-old girls.
Oh, no. Like I said, screw them all. Like, I mean, not all of them. I think it's actually really sad that the ATF burned him down. Kids and women.
They didn't know no better, especially the kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, they didn't know no better.
Yeah, and the ATF did torch it. I know that they say, "Oh no, it was." Like, I've heard all kinds of things like smoke grenades.
It was a tear gas cylinder that caught the building on fire.
Right, because we see that all the time when you shoot tear gas and everything just lights on fire. Doesn't add up, ATF. That was pretty much a crime that went down there on both sides. Don't get me wrong, but that being said, I just kind of want to show. You know, these people, the ATF, would be more happy to do this to a Christian organization than they would the Branch. And let me explain this. The ATF weren't going to get involved. In fact, most of the government wasn't going to get involved with this strange Branch Davidian cult. They didn't care. They didn't care about the pedophilia. They didn't care about all that weird stuff. They only started freaking out when these creeps started getting guns.
Well, and when they heard there were non-NFA compliant guns.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that they went about this knowing dang well there was like children and women in there, I think it could have been solved like easily. In fact, looking at different documentaries and the people involved, the truth is, they probably would have risen against David Koresh or whatever his name is by the end of it because they were sick of it.
I just thought of a great skit for that.
Yeah.
Be dressed up like a Branch Davidian, and you look at the ATF guy dressed up and said, "But what about the women and children?" And the ATF guy, "Easy, you just don't lead them as much."
Yeah, that's a fact. And we've seen that the ATF are heartless killers. Ruby Ridge is the best example. Like Waco, there's both sides involved. Ruby Ridge was purely ATF federal agents slaughtering civilians because they were bloodthirsty.
They love shooting women and children in Fido.
And yeah, they got a huge kill count on dogs. Oh no! Oh no! Don't show that! They're gonna come! They're gonna shoot him!
It's okay. They're not afraid of him, but John's afraid of him. He's very afraid.
That little dog, he's cute, man. I've trained him up how I want him, but he bites the devil out of me. He's a good dog. Anyhow, moving on with that. So that's the guy. That's his background, is posing over the corpses of women and children, which is not a very good look, might I add, for someone who's wanting to be head of the guys who get to call the shots when it comes to our rights as humans.
He's proud of that, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's very happy.
He's proud. I was proud of Waco.
He sees Waco as a total victory because he hates gun owners. He could care less that they were cult. He could care less about all that. Like I said, it's not about that. He could care less
that they were pedophiles. Like I said, he's Clinton's buddy. Mm-hmm. If you're Clinton's buddy, I'm guessing, and this is alleged still, but I'm guessing you're a pedophile. Guilt by association.
Guilt by association, absolutely. I mean, I don't care if he's a pedophile or not. He's in the ATF. That's enough.
What I want to know is if he is Clinton's buddy. You think he took a ride on the Lolita Express? Is there papers out there?
Look, I don't want to make too many accusations, but it wouldn't surprise me.
This is just hypothetical. All hypothetical. Because that's all you have to say, and then it's okay.
I was about to say, I find the agency, the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms Agency, to be the single worst agency outside of like the CIA. Like when it comes to blood on their hands.
Lower, and I'm sorry, folks, I'm going to say a naughty word. They are lower than whale shit.
They are. Like, I was about to say, like I was saying, that antelope that I got, the head on the stick? That I would feel worse for that antelope after shooting it than I would anything else.
And to see more of that antelope, watch our film, Skinwalker.
Attack of the Skinwalker, available on YouTube. You can click by and see that. We have a lot of fun there. That was a fun film. We need to get back on track. I talked with because we had this other film planned. Everybody, so kind of described. I was thinking like such a project to that scale, we kind of have to have a lot of time on our hands. And so I was thinking once we become I kind of want to reshoot it as an idea, recast that idea once we're a bit more sustainable on this platform, is Today the Day Media, later on down the line. That might be a few years, but the size of the project is quite monumental, and for it to be everything I want it to be any time.
So get out there, subscribe, like, comment. And if you feel like helping, want to support the channel, hit us up and we can get with you. If you would like to give a donation, we would very appreciate that.
Suggestions, even if you're a small business owner. Yeah, if you're a small business owner and you have like supplies that you don't want to promote your business with on our show, and
we're looking for sponsors, but with one caveat, we will tell you this. We only sponsor a product if we like the product. Yeah, we're not going to falsely say, hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread.
I was about to say, maybe I can get me some of that neck wrinkle ointment from Rush Limbaugh. Help me out.
Hey, Gaston Glock, if you would like to sponsor us, we'd appreciate it.
Oh, speaking of Glock, they're making a carbine. It's set in stone
they
now.
are. You stole. I was gonna say that.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
they're making a carbine. Major hype.
Finally.
It looks a bit weird from the concept art.
Well, it's very interesting. It's AR-ish kinda, but if you look at the, you can actually look up the design specs because they took out a patent, and so you can look up the design specs at the patent office
Nice.
online, and you can look at their the way they're building it. And so the end of the lug is very AR-ish, like with the the multi-prong lug. But the rest of it is completely different. It looks very bulky though.
Yeah.
Like the handle, the forearm, I don't know.
Knowing
We'll
Glock,
see.
though, I'd expect them to be able to make, even if it looks a bit strange, to make a very light carbine. I think that's what they're going to aim for, is a very lightweight
I'm thinking
carbine.
it probably will be light. I'm just hoping that the forearm isn't real thick. Because even if it's light, if you can't get control and C-clamp that forearm down with your thumb over the top, it's going to be hard to mitigate recoil. That's the reason why the AK is so much harder to mitigate recoil. It's not necessarily because a 7.62x39 is that much more peppy than a 5.56. It's just you can't hold it the same.
Yeah.
That's why if you're going to run an AK, my suggestion is to put the dong on the front of it.
Let's see here. Let me look at our notes here. Let's see. Under Craphead Mans.
Well,
I want to talk about a certain leadership in our state.
A certain leadership? You mean a certain governor?
Perhaps.
Oh man, I'm curious because about this time last year, reports came out. I can't even remember. Why don't you take care of that? Like, was it reports of something that happened in our area, or?
Well, there's a lot of reports of our area. I remember old Michelle Lujan Grissom and all her virtue to keep us safe and protected at gunpoint from COVID-19, the worst thing to happen in American history. It's just so many dead people. I'm just so scared. She, in all her virtue, took a trip to Navajo Lake when she told everyone else to stay inside and shut up. She's a hypocrite. And I wonder if they had Wagyu beef on that boat. Because she sure loves her Wagyu beef that cost like $3,000 a pork loin.
She probably had her hair done by her daughter too.
Oh yes, the whole $3,000 hair treatment.
6,000.
6,000 tax-paying dollars. I paid for her crap-looking hair.
That went straight into her family member's pocket.
Hey, you know what? I ain't mad at the family member. I'd take $6,000 too. I mean, whatever. But you know what?
So what you're saying is don't hate the player, hate the game?
Well, hate the developer. But hey.
But yeah, so that's all I'm going to say on all that stupidity. She's an idiot. And if she is out there over the weekend, I guess, more power to her.
Well, because the right now is like, oh, she's vaccinated. She can do that now. Because the vaccinations work. Hey, I don't know if I want to talk about that statistic, actually. But there's an unwavering amount of people who have gotten the COVID vaccine who have died from the COVID vaccine. It keeps adding up. There's been plenty of videos on Chi-Com TikTok showing that. But
I have heard places like New York City, other places. I was reading this on Twitter, that all of the hospitals in like New York City right now, any of their New York City COVID cases are from the jab.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who'd have thunk
Yes,
that?
like they like 100% of all COVID cases right now. I looked at this because I wasn't for sure if I was right, so I looked it up before the show. 100% of all COVID cases right now in New York City is from taking a jab.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that, like, oh, you're going to test positive because a vaccine, in its concept, is the virus. Very small, but how come they're being hospitalized? Wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen with a vaccine. You're not supposed to get so sick you get hospitalized. I understand, like, licking hot for, COVID because you got it injected into you, that makes sense. But there's so much of this going on. There's so many side effects. And right now, my biggest fear is pregnant women who have gotten vaccinated. There's like a whole big test right now that is like neither confirmed or denied, but I expect in like a whole like 8-9 months. Look at who's behind this damn thing. It's Bill Gates. Bill Gates' specialty outside of the Windows operating system that we work on, thanks Bill Gates for that, I guess. But, it would be nice if you just stuck to Windows instead of sterilizing thousands upon thousands of Africans.
That's just it. Like, I used to listen to this lady that used to have a radio show. This is way back before Glenn Beck got popular. It was Laura Ingraham. She's actually on Fox News now, but she used to be on the radio. And she did have a very hilarious quote, and she actually made a book about it called "Shut Up and Sing" or "Shut Up and Act." And that's just it. Like, if I'm going, I don't know, say I want to go watch a Mission Impossible movie with what's his name, the crazy guy, Tom Cruise. I don't care what his politics are.
I really don't.
I don't want to hear him spout his bullcrap. I want to see him jump out of airplanes and do stunt stuff in an action movie.
Did you ever hear about his?
Paid to see.
Did you ever hear about? I mean, speaking of Tom Hanks, no, I'm not Tom Hanks. No, sorry, different Tom.
Cruise.
I was about to say I'll give Tom Cruise a little bit of a, you're okay other than your weird Scientology. Yeah.
He's weird with his Scientology, but he actually is. I mean, he's a big businessman.
I was about to say, like, I mean, as far as I can tell, Tom Cruise isn't diddling children. You can be in a cult, just don't diddle the kids, man.
Exactly, yes.
That's the way I say it. Again, the same rights I want for others, I want for myself.
Correct.
If someone's got a refute to that and has, oh, look here, he was on Epstein's flight list, and I'll be like, oh, okay, whatever, screw him too. But whatever, I haven't really seen that. Tom Cruise. But the main thing is, have you ever heard of Tom Cruise's beef with South Park back in the day?
No. What was
I'll
that?
have to show you that. So there's a bit in South Park. It really cracks me up. So Cartman and all his friends go out to a plant. And this plant is a fudge packing plant.
Oh, no.
And they have Tom Cruise. He's sitting there, and he's like got the fudge in its bin, and he keeps like packing it and stuff. Oh my gosh, Tom Cruise, you're a fudge packer. I am not a fudge packer. He's all actively doing. Dude, Tom Cruise was so angry about that episode. I don't remember, like, and I think it's the same one where it's like, come out of the closet, Tom Cruise. I don't wanna. Come out of the closet. He's like hiding in a closet because like they've made him feel so bad about packing fags.
Of course, that is typical because he is just a little. I'm just gonna say it. He's a little pussy.
Well, he's kind of proven gay, isn't he?
I don't know if he's got a wife.
Well, maybe that's why it was like it's like that's defamation. I'm not gay.
He's just a douchebag.
I thought he was gay.
I know. No, I don't think he's gay. But when he was on the ship, the naval ship, filming Top Gun, my father's friend was actually on that ship in the 80s.
Yeah, total douche canoe. Total douche canoe.
Yeah, he said the whole ship hated him because he was such a douche. He would not go out of his like little stateroom until filming and then he'd go right back in there and just and he would bitch the whole time. So the scene where he's in the water, where Goose dies from when they eject, and of course Goose hits the canopy because it didn't go up all the way and it breaks his neck, and he comes down. He's supposed to be uh cradling Goose, which is played by Jeff Green. I think it's Jeff Green. Jeff something. I think his last name's Green. And it's just this heartfelt scene. As soon as the scene's over, he starts bitching and whining and complaining that he was in the water too long and the rescue divers hadn't gotten to him.
I would say there's your action hero. He does good acting.
Yeah.
He does good acting.
Well, and I will give him this. All of his stunts, Tom Cruise does do himself.
That's fair.
All the Mission Impossible stuff that he's done, like jumping off the side of a building and then like base jumping, he did that.
Okay. Well, give him a little bit of credit where credit's due.
So
I thought Tom Cruise was gay,
him,
dude. Like, I'm sitting here like, I thought that was like just his thing.
I don't, unless he's swings both ways. I don't know about that, but I do know he's married. But he's just a douchebag. In the mess hall on that carrier, they had his picture on a dartboard and they were throwing darts at it.
Yeah. That's pretty bad when you don't even have enough of a gumption to make Navy dudes happy.
They loved Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer would eat in the mess hall with the guys. He would eat whatever they were eating. He would sign all their autographs. They loved Val Kilmer.
So, that's a nice little rabbit hole. I liked it.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, this weekend is a very important weekend. I kind of like it does kind of fly by for me because Memorial Day to me is something that it's just something kind of done as an average weekly thing. Like I don't have an altar or anything like weirdly religious or anything, but to me our freedom has been preserved by blood and combat for years on end, ever since our founding. Mm-hmm. And the missions that we have today, though they are far away, are important. I find just like the heroes of yesterday to be equal to the heroes of today. Anybody who volunteers their life to serve this nation, even if at times you're left wondering, am I really serving the nation? I find you to be a hero. And it's really important to me. So, it's Memorial Day weekend. It's a time where Americans get together to remember those we've lost in combat as Americans. Our sons and daughters who have gone out and fought. Mirroring. Going around. He just switched. He moved his couch around that fast.
Now I look like I'm looking at you. I just thought of that. I was like, oh man, I should have done that in the first place.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're looking at me, and your knee is taking up a solid bottom quarter of your... Hairy legs. Hairy legs. Anyhow.
For all you foot ladies out there.
There you go. The foot. My white ass foot. That's so messed up. We were having this heartfelt discussion about Memorial Day. We're like, hey, look at our feet! Hey,
I'll bet you the vets that died are okay with that. It's funny. You know how you hear some vets always say, yeah, you should be remembering the people who died instead of making barbecue and all this? A good buddy of mine, and he is a veteran. He was a sniper in Desert Storm. He said, that's bullshit. He said, the guys that died for your freedom want you to have a good time because that's what they died for.
Yeah. I agree, man. I always thought about that. It's always kind of funny to me. That's exactly right. People, I think, have gotten some things backwards, and It's kind of the same thing. Like I noticed with like a lot of Americans is we feel like, and this includes the right, is like we feel the need to tell others what they need to be offended by.
Right.
And so, like, I've seen that on both sides, especially the left. It's like, most African Americans or whatever, they're just kind of sitting there, they're doing their own thing, whatever. And then there's this, like, angry 400-pound blue-haired mammoth white chick comes running. Did you hear what that man said? Yeah, did you hear? And her bat wings are flopping, all over the place. And
that's unfortunately, and I've seen this with some, not all, very few, but a few veterans that do that too. Like,
yeah.
You should be staying at home and being somber. Why?
Right. Hey, here's a 3-day weekend. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing too. Like death. Like, don't get me wrong. It's fine to take a minute, be like, like especially if you're Christian, thank the Lord for the, veterans in the armed forces that have done the things that they needed to do so we could sleep peacefully at night. I think that.
And that's like my buddy said. I'll call him Bob. Bob was like, "Nah," he said, go have fun with your family over this weekend.
Yeah.
Drink a beer. Enjoy yourself, because that's what those veterans from all the way from the Revolutionary War to present died for.
Absolutely. And that's what I believe in, is the American dream, to enjoy yourself, prosper in what you work for, and do as you, exactly that. So, like, I understand being respectful. There's, of course, I can see it, with the left and there. If you want any proof, I'm going to tell you right now, over the weekend, and even on Memorial Day, there's going to be things like crosses or gravestones. There's going to be disrespect that's happened to them. So you know what? If you are near one of these things and it matters to you, how about you catch one of these people red-handed?
Yeah.
Get them. Because it's going to happen. Don't just think that because Trump is out of office that they're going to stop. The left hates America. The left hates our armed forces. And why do they hate our armed forces, right? Isn't it our armed forces that stopped Nazis, that stopped tyranny, that stopped so much evil in this world? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they're evil. They hate our armed forces because they're evil.
Right? Because they were all a bunch of white guys that did it.
Isn't that so funny? They'll say something like that too.
Been
completely
lesbian, trisexual pandas.
They should have been. They should have been. And with our modern military, I just went there. Look, I'm sorry. You were talking about it. Lockheed Martin. We almost forgot to list that.
Oh, yes. Can I say something with this first? From a young boy, I idolized Lockheed Martin. I remember watching. There used to be a television channel on the satellite. This was before History Channel and stuff, called Wings. This is before the military channel. But Wings was all about the history and the love of flight. And so they did lots of military history because that's where most of our flight came from. Other than the Wright brothers, inventing it, then it took off when World War I hit.
Yep.
And from then on, yeah. And aviation has always been kind of a fascination to me. It was even more of a fascination for my father. And so me and him, we used to kind of like bond by watching Wings. We watched Charles Lindbergh and all the history with that, and Chuck Yeager. That's the first guy that broke the sound barrier. Did you know that actually Chuck Yeager, here's a fun fact for you real quick, had a broken rib the day he did that?
Yes, I did know. I did.
And if they would have found out, they wouldn't have let him do the flight. So what he did is he went to the janitor on base, and he's like, "Hey, you got anything?" Because he couldn't reach over to shut the door. He said, "You got anything that I can like hook to pull that door with?" So the janitor went to the back of the closet, and he cut off a broomstick and he taped a hanger to it, and that way Chuck could reach over, and when nobody was looking, he shut the door real quick.
You know, there was an excellent set of film if you want to get into like the aerodynamic history of the United States as well as the space programs of like the 60s and 50s. It's called The Right Stuff. Have you ever seen it?
Oh yeah.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's really good.
Yeah, I grew up watching that. I'd watch it a lot actually. I actually really enjoyed The Right Stuff.
Really good actors in that. That's pretty much an all-star cast too. Really good movie. I could talk about that all day, so I'm not gonna keep going down that rabbit hole. But so Lockheed Martin, the reason I explained all this, that I looked up to them because there was many stories about Lockheed Martin on wings, and liberalism, socialism, nay, communism has taken another one of my childhood dreams. They have taken over Lockheed Martin to the point where their employees have been required to go to racial re-education classes.
So archaic.
And not only that, that's just your again, like that poor janitor, if he was still there, would have had to gone to. The upper brass, including colonels of the Air Force and all kinds of stuff, went on a voluntary race, a white race hatred class, teaching them how they should hate their whiteness. Scrub it off!
It's all over me, Ty! Ah, Washburn, help! It's all over me! Oh God, my hair, it's blonde! My eyes, they're blue! Ah!
You see there, he is whiter than I am,
I was about to say,
he's got the white beard.
Nazis should listen to me because I'm Aryan. I'm full-blown freaking Nordic. Look at me, right?
But with that said, yeah, so they had things saying, I acknowledge my whiteness and I acknowledge that my race is evil and all this. They had to like do this chant. It was almost like a cult or something.
Yeah, no, and that, I believe it is. I believe it's very occult inspired. They might not like want to say that, but if you look at like the Black Lives Matter leaders and like certain Antifa things, like the leaders, George Soros and stuff like that, right? George Soros and like the Black Lives Matter stuff, like all their leaders have some background in like witchcraft. That's what I thought was really interesting.
Witchcraft and voodoo.
Yeah. So it only makes sense that there's this. So not to dismay people, but in a large part, a lot of our American institutions, especially on the government scale, have been compromised by communism. That's one, and witchcraft, and just overall anti-Americanism. Now, they want you to believe that this is a race thing. It's not. No. They want you to believe that it is, that it's like this big thing where people can choose to, that it's an easy, simple thing where it's just like, oh, I'm sorry for being white and the slavery and all this and that the white people have done over the years. They want you to believe it really is that simple. It's not. And that's, if it really was that simple, I think I could see myself saying like, oh, okay, I get it, right? It wasn't my choice to be born this way, but it's not that simple. What they're trying to do actively is try to make Americans, one, divided, demoralized, and hateful. It would be. Imagine if like Africans had to answer for all the crap they've done. Wouldn't that be seen as like stupid? Oh, okay. I had it put this way. Imagine going to Japan, finding a little Japanese girl and telling her, "You know what? You should be sorry for Pearl Harbor. That was your people's fault." Isn't that not sound just outrageously stupid? Because it is.
Finding Africans and telling them you were responsible for decimating all those British soldiers in the Zulu Wars.
Right. It's your fault.
Because they killed thousands of British soldiers.
Well, the British were stupid. They probably got what was coming to them.
They were. I'm not saying they weren't.
So I'm not going to hold it. I mean, and I know you don't mean it, like, literally, to look at it that way, but...
Oh, I do.
Well, if you do, I'm sorry. I can't hold the Zulus responsible.
I'm just kidding. The British were dumbasses. They shouldn't have had single-shot Martini Henrys against frickin' hordes and hordes of Zulu warriors.
Well, if you had enough Martini Henrys...
Dumb. And I want to let you know, chaps, you will not be shooting all 10 rounds that you have in your satchels. We only have 10 rounds, sir? Yes, that's all you're getting.
Golly, yeah, no, they were dumb. The British were cocky. That was their big downfall. That's why I think they lost the revolution, too.
Oh, yeah. Their arrogance was... We played against their arrogance. Because, see, our guys had learned from the Native Americans. Well, you see, if you hide behind this tree and this rock here, and you lean out, you can pop one of those officers in the head and kill him. And we figured out, well, if you kill the officer, everybody else doesn't know what to do, and they just take off running.
Yep. You've broken the chain of command, you wanker!
Yes. You bloody wankers!
So, yeah. No, it's a very... Go ahead.
Let's see. I'm trying to think here. I had a thought, and just like a fart in the wind, it disappeared. Oh, yes. So, John, I mean, I know you kind of mentioned it and wanted to say thanks, but could you give him maybe some history and background on Memorial Day? Like when did that start? That kind of thing, because that's up your alley.
As for the actual origins of Memorial Day, I haven't really much looked into it. I will admit that my bad. But as for its reason, which is kind of the thing, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, well, we have obvious reasons, but I thought maybe you knew
the background of it. I don't really have the timetable. But I do have war history. So, something I'd like to talk about is just the history of combat in America. Or from America, rather. And it starts off in 1770. Or not in 1770, but in the 1770s. Americans weren't really known as Americans at the time. They were British colonies that formed against, of course, the British Empire, the strongest empire at the time. Literal combat warfare god of the time. Nobody could stand against the British war machine. But America, as well as a few other countries like South Africa and such, felt the need to. America, after many years, and this is something I want to explain, America wasn't founded on good feelings. It wasn't founded on diplomacy or kind words. America was hard fought by people with an idea of liberty and freedom. To put in the words of Thomas Jefferson, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the Revolutionary War. That's where this nation began, and it was from Americans fighting for their rights. Militia. There was no real organized form of military when it came to Americans. Most of us were farmers. Most of us were just homebodies. We just stayed at home. We'd farm. We'd ranch. We'd frontier. We'd conquered the land. You know what I mean? And there was even wars that, among conquering the land that could be argued, whatever. But you move on to the Civil War. And this is one I always like to bring up on Memorial Day. The Civil War, in my opinion, is the most tragic American war, as immediately there wasn't a very clear right and wrong there until slavery was brought into the equation in the later years of the war. As the way I like to put it is that slavery didn't start the war, but it did end it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I like to put it. The Union soldiers fought the Confederate soldiers, and I have respect for both sides, as I believe both sides had right and wrongs. I believe that the Confederacy had the right to secede. However, they had no right to be keeping slaves.
Mm-hmm.
As all men should be free. You move on into World War I, where the Americans joined in late in the war. The Europeans had been fighting for about 4 years at this point. Between 1914 to 1918, the Europeans had been fighting nonstop between the Germans, the Russians, the Austrians, the Italians, all of Europe, all of Europe,
All of them,
all of the little evil little crusaders and conquering white people were fighting. Unrelated, but all of Europe and all of their little limp-wristed politics were going on. Then America shows up with something, actually, that hadn't really been recognized by the rest of the world. It was a unit that was formed shortly after America's founding that went and fought Muslim pirates early on in America's history. That was spearheaded by Thomas Jefferson. This unit became known as Devil Dogs. The Germans were terrified of these units. This American force that, outside of everyone, all the Europeans that had been fighting, this eager troop of young men was excited to get into combat. It was something that the Europeans weren't used to. Most Europeans were very somber on the battlefield. They weren't exactly happy to be fighting. But the Marine Corps arrived.
Yep. And that's actually in Tripoli. That's where they fought the Barbary pirates mostly.
Right.
That's where actually they became Devil Dogs. I believe was a little bit later. That's where they became known as the Leathernecks.
Yeah, the Leathernecks was the Barbary pirate mission spearheaded by Thomas Jefferson. The Devil Dogs was Germans in World War I.
They found out.
Tuffelhunde.
They found out that if they took a thick chunk of leather and they sewed it to the back of their uniforms, it was sticking up. When the Barbary pirates would try to chop their heads off with those big cutlass swords, it wouldn't work. It'd protect them.
So
That's when they become
1918.
the Fighting Leathernecks.
So in 1918, the Leathernecks, now known as Marines, conquered the battlefield with their eagerness and their new way of fighting. Because America at the time in World War I hadn't really been at a war since the Civil War.
Correct.
They were very unaccustomed to it, and there was a few things like gas. A lot of Americans died to gas, and a lot of Americans, just like Englishmen and across the board, who have fought for a better world, arguably in Britain's later years, has been a friend of ours for a long time. I don't like England, but,
They should have just grew up with my father. They'd have been immune to gas.
Yeah, mine too. I have to say. Maybe.
Love you, Dad.
Your farts! Your stinking farts! But no, the Americans showed up in World War I. The Army also had a major part in holding positions and such. All forces, and you also saw the early rendition of the Air Force, which is kind of funny. If you really want to look at something fascinating, look at the World War I Air Forces of countries, because this wasn't like airstrikes, right? They would have like there was like a recording of like German pilots having Okay, so do you remember lawn darts? Those like banned toys from the 70s?
Yes.
Um,
I had a set of lawn darts.
They would use those in World War. Well, not like lawn darts, but it was like these metal things that resemble lawn darts. They would have 2 seats in the little like crop duster planes that were flying in World War One, and the dude in the back would be throwing those lawn darts
Drop 'em.
down.
Yeah. Be like, that was their release system.
Exactly. They're just. It's so funny to me. You know, if you look at World War One and all the tech, it's really interesting. But that's a topic for another time. Then comes, perhaps one of the most important conflicts in American history, where things were clearer than World War One. There was good and there was evil, and lesser evil fighting evil. Kind of funny, but actually equal evil fighting evil. But anyhow, America rose to the occasion again, just like in World War One. They were there a little bit later than everyone, but they finished the war.
Yes.
World War Two. America had remained mostly neutral in World War Two for most of it. They didn't want to get involved because they saw what war looks like from World War One. Many men had died slow, agonizing deaths. It's not fun. Mothers mourned their sons. And 20 years later, there's this new talk of a guy with a funny mustache doing all kinds of evil crap. And honestly, most of America didn't want anything to do with it. They said, we remember Woodrow Wilson. We don't want another war. We don't want it.
Yep.
Stay out of it, FDR. Which I don't like Freddie. But anyways.
Yeah, they were afraid they was going to get into it with old like Kaiser Wilhelm.
Yeah, and we did. 5 times harder. And that's the thing about the American fighting force, is we were in it to defeat the enemy and win.
Right.
If you look at World War II, the very early days, we were going to stay neutral until we were hit in Pearl Harbor. And many young men died. The Japanese attacked us by surprise, and all these young men were caught off guard. Most of them drowned from this surprise attack, and America was mourning. But to put it in the words of a Japanese admiral, I fear that our emperor has done nothing but to awaken a sleeping giant.
Yes. Admiral Yamamoto.
And that he was correct. America fought across the world. The Pacific Front and the Eastern Front is interesting, but when it came to Europe, America said, all right, we're in the war now. Churchill, you've got what you've been begging us for. We're going to fight, and we're going to win. We know that the Germans have taken a beach in France. We're going to take that beach back. Normandy. A day to remember.
Yep.
There were so many bodies on the beach of Normandy that the water was red for 2 days, if not a week. There were so many bodies on that beach of American soldiers. I think I wish there could have been a better way to fight that. But just that alone.
It was so thick. The blood was so thick in the water that the fish were dying and floating to the top. They couldn't breathe.
Yep.
That's just crazy.
Yep. Many Americans stormed that beach, being cut down by German MG fire, airstrikes, mortars, tanks.
Yep.
They fought, and they took that beach. They wouldn't stop until they did. And this was a clear message to Hitler. We aren't going to stop. It went on, this great conquest from the Americans. We conquered every point without any mercy towards this enemy. We strove, we fought, and we conquered until the war was done. And when we finally, in the Pacific Front, through the Philippines, and through Iwo Jima, and many other conflicts in between, we taught the Emperor that Yamamoto was correct. You should not have messed with the United States. We gave them an ultimatum: surrender now, or else what? They said. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, both of which I am not sorry for. I feel no pity as an American. They had their choice and they threw it away. It goes on. After World War II, there was Korea. The Koreans were fighting, and then at this point, after winning 2 world wars, where America proved who the good guys were, became the world police, much to the dismay of Russia and other communist countries who wanted to take the limelight. But the world knew that communism was just as evil as Nazism.
Do you think that the Americans at the time, the powers that be or whatever, tried to talk to the Koreans and show them our 1911?
Perhaps.
Oh, okay. Just when you said 2 world wars, that's what it made me think of.
You're getting shell shock again, War Spirit. 2 world wars. We went on.
2 world wars.
The Koreans from the north began a conflict with South Korea. And at this point, America was known as the good guys, the heroes of the world. Even Churchill, during World War II, I know America will do the right thing. As it was a quote from him. He might have been trying to manipulate us into joining the war, but...
here's that whole quote. I know the Americans will do the right thing after they have exhausted every other option.
Well, that
was Churchill's quote.
Well, and he's absolutely right. But we will do the right thing.
Correct.
And another quote from military combatants in World War II. The Americans are unpredictable because I don't think they even know what they're doing.
Yes!
Yeah. Oh, also, here, let's do another World War II special. Do you remember... It was some forest, and there was a note kind of passed between the American commander and the German commander. What did that note say from the American commander to the German one?
Nuts!
What does this mean? He sends us one word to our proposition. We tell them, how about you surrender and we won't kill this village? And I'm serious. No, they were going to rain down fire on a village of, like, innocent people to get these Americans.
So the forest is the forest of Bastogne.
Okay.
And the company was called Easy Company. They were the paratroopers that parachuted in during D-Day. They'd already been fighting for a while now. It was the same company that they wrote about with what's his name? It's either Steve Winters or Nick Winters. I forget. Winters is his last name. He was the commander of Easy Company, and they're the ones that became the legendary Band of Brothers that they made the HBO special out of.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're hunkered down these foxholes. It's cold. It's like 19 degrees outside, wet because it's Germany. It's humid, that wet cold. People are getting sick from colds and all this other stuff, and the German commander sends a messenger boy. This German messenger boy. He's probably whatever the equivalent of a private in the German army is. Up into Easy Company, I don't have no weapon, I no shoot. And he tells him, we have you surrounded, and my commander wants to let you know that he will give you the opportunity to surrender. And if you don't surrender, we are going to shell this whole surrounding area. And there are civilians here. But it's not a problem. And so, they're trying to get the Americans, because they're like, oh, well, they'll do the right thing. They're Americans. And so the captain goes back to his tent, and he's perplexed. And he looks at his sergeant. And I love this. He looks at his sergeant because this is typical NCOs. And he's like, and I want to say his name was Chuck. Chuck, what do I do? Sir, that's nuts. He said, thank you, Chuck. Even Chuck was like, what? He leaves, and that's all he writes on there. Hand writes it, doesn't even type it. Nuts.
It sends
Gives
it
back to the guy.
Yep.
And like, he's like, you just want me to send this? Yeah. And I'm sure the German commander still didn't understand. But here's the cool thing. God was on their side that day, God was on our side the whole time. But the unit battalion that was supposed to do the shelling with the 88s was called off to the front that day. And so the threat to shell the town never happened because they didn't have the 88s.
Isn't that something? There's so many miracles in World War II, World War I,
Yep.
and across the board when it comes to American fighters. Even so, like going on, I love that bit of history, but going on to the Korean War where it was so freezing cold that their guns were frozen solid, they wouldn't fire.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to resort to peeing on their rifles. This short,
Yep.
wounded, tired, exhausted force of Americans fighting hordes of Chinese communists. Piss on them!
Piss on them.
Yeah, the Korean
That's where
War.
we got that
Sorry.
phrase.
Yeah, that is where that phrase came from. The Korean War is known as the Forgotten War, which I think is tragic. I think it's very important to know about the Korean War and the sacrifice that was laid down there. I understand that it was it wasn't as frowned upon as, say, Vietnam, which we'll get to, but it was an important conflict, and America, sadly, because this is where the politicians started stepping into warfare. They said, "Oh, we shouldn't send any more. This is South Korea's business at this point." No,
Yes.
after we've already lost a man there, I don't care. Fight till the enemy is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say, if the enemy just put their guns up and said, "We are sorry," perhaps have a bit of like, okay, maybe this is their problem. But the moment that an enemy kills an American soldier, it's on.
And not only that, and that's why I wish that our president at the time would have had some bigger stones. It emboldened Russia.
Yep.
Because Russia was the ones that were supplying them.
So
there were even Russian troops there. They were flying the MiGs.
And it also comes from a place of we were under this new thing that kind of came about. This thing that sounded kind of cool in concept, but it was made up of pansy Europeans and Americans and all the other free countries. The United Nations had come to be founded shortly after World War II to keep a maniac like Hitler from rising again.
Mm-hmm.
It's all awful fun and games when until the peacekeepers are going to kill everybody.
Yeah, it makes you. I wish we could find records like how many war crimes the United Nations has committed.
Oh, well, maybe not. Well, yeah, NATO / the UN. They're kind of the same thing.
NATO and the UN are different.
They are. Like I said, they're different. Like they work with each other, but NATO's concept is kind of, in my opinion, I guess a little more respectable than the UN. Because their concept is kill the enemy so they stop causing crap, whereas UN is suck the enemy's dick so they stop causing crap.
Well, in NATO, all NATO is just basically the organization that works to be the liaison for all the countries.
Mm-hmm.
That's all NATO does.
Right.
Whereas the UN, they have their own agenda.
I can tell you right now, I don't care what blue flag you're under, be it NATO or UN, don't step on my soil. Have a good day. But anyways, a little more respect towards NATO than the UN any day, though.
I was going to say, actually, NATO is on our soil, so technically.
Well, just don't step on mine.
UN, no.
All right. They better stay off. Anyhow, The point being, going on Korea, then we go on to Vietnam, which Vietnam is Vietnam. It was a police action. That's when America started doing that retarded crap. Sorry, I used the R word, but it's truly. So I'm all for Vietnam if we would have went in and again won.
Please
Now,
don't ban us, YouTube.
whatever, we said worse on the show. The main point being, Vietnam, just like Korea, should have just been, all right, there's some communists causing crap, let's go wipe them out. Let's gain the independence for the free country, which again was South Vietnam, just like South Korea. There shouldn't have been this halfway, like, all right, we're pulling out. Because the politicians back at home, I think, were strongly compromised by the powers that have been around since ancient Rome. This thing, many people call it, like, whatever, the deep state, whatever you want to call it. It started showing up there. It started rearing its head. You have other things that have gone on. You get into the Gulf War. You get into Iraq, Fallujah, Desert Storm, all of those things, which, again, when the enemy struck us at home, I wish we would have just been that same spirit of World War II. Not to disfame any of the sacrifice made those days during the desert conflicts that we've been in for, 20, 30 years now. The sacrifices that have been made to keep this country safe from enemies foreign and domestic is something that I think about every day and that I'm very thankful for. That I haven't had to do what the soldiers have done to protect this nation. That I haven't had to lose the sleep like they have. That I haven't had to make the sacrifices that they've had to. And that I've got all 4 of my limbs. And that I'm able to party. I'm able to kiss women on Memorial Day. I'm able to have the time of my life. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for all our armed forces. Here it is today, the Day Media. We have only respect for you. We have no criticisms towards you or your actions. Your leadership might be a bit dragged right now, and I think so. I think they've been compromised. But as for you, the soldiers, underneath this weird reality we're going through, you are the reason this nation is free, and we thank you for it. That is today, the Day Media. That's pretty much my moments in history. We are running at 10:35 right now.
Yep.
To say,
it's probably time to wrap her up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let me go ahead and pull this up. Do you have any final notes? Maybe plug the page or some such while I pull up this little piece here?
Yes. So check us out at Facebook. That's www.facebook.com/ITTDM. Right now, you won't be able to hear from me because I'm banned from YouTube right now for another 20 days or so for saying the word slut. But if you want to message him, John, he can still answer any questions you may have. Like our page if you would. Please also, if you would, like our YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. And support us because we're only as big as our listeners make us. We would really appreciate it if we could get a little bit bigger and get a bigger voice. Because the more people we start getting, the bigger footprint we have. And I have heads popping up behind me. I don't know why I have heads popping up behind me. But the kids made me lose my place here.
How about prayer?
There you go. Well, let's pray. Thank you for the men that died, giving the ultimate price, Lord. Their lives for our country. And I just pray that you would just bless those families that don't have a dad or a granddad today because of it. And also, just with that, Lord, we also thank you, Lord Jesus, for giving your life for us, for dying on the cross for our sins, Lord. Because you yourself, Lord Jesus, said that no greater love than a man has than he lay down his life for his friends. We thank you for that, and we pray that we would ponder on that this weekend, and that you would just help us to have a good time this weekend. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hmm.
Let me go ahead and recount that. Sorry, everybody. My grandfather died. I was plugging him. He's a veteran. He served during the Korean conflict. My family is heartbroken today. But as per our tradition, it is better to go to heaven and be with Christ and your loved ones than it is to be in pain and immobilized and suffering for the rest of your days. My grandfather was an excellent man. He was the last of the oldest generation of Mobergs in this area to be around. So pray for my family in this time. Pray for peace. And just pray for us to just find comfort that he's at home and that he's happy with his wife and many, many other people he has helped in his life. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm going to go ahead and tune on our rendition of Ragged Old Flag in light of Memorial Day. It has been a pleasure talking about this with all of you, and we will be seeing you next Friday, hopefully, God willing. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a good night. I'm going to leave you with Ragged Old Flag, originally done by Johnny Cash, resung by yours truly. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. What do you got?
Bye.
Bye. All right. Talk to you guys. I walked through a county courthouse square. On a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I said, "Your old courthouse is kind of run down." And he said, "No, it'll do for our little town." I said, "Your old flagpole is leaned a little bit, and that's a ragged old flag you got hanging on it." He said, "Have a seat," and I sat down. "Is this the first time you've been to our little town?" I said, "I think it is." He said, "Well, I don't like to brag, but we're kind of proud of that ragged old flag. You see, we got a little hole in that flag there when Washington took it across that Delaware. And it got powder burned the night that Francis Scott Key sat watching it writing, 'Say can you see?' It got a bad rip in New Orleans, with Pakenham and Jackson tugging at its seams. And it almost fell at the Alamo beside the Texas flag, but she waved on though. She got cut with a sword in Chancellorsville. She got cut again in Shiloh Hill. There was Robert E. Lee, Beauregard, and Bragg, and the south winds blew hard on that ragged old flag. On Flanders Field in World War I, she got a bad hole from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II. She hung limp and low a time or two. She was in Korea and Vietnam. She went where she was sent by her Uncle Sam. She waved from our ships upon the briny foam, and now they've got to quit waving back here at home. In her own good land here, she's been abused. She's been burned, dishonored, denied, and refused. And the government for which she stands is scandalized throughout the land.
She's getting threadbare and she's wearing kind of thin, but she's in good shape for the shape she's in, 'cause she's been through that fire before, son. And I believe she can take a whole lot more. So we raise her up every morning and we take her down every night. We don't let her touch the ground and we fold her up right. On second thought, I do like to brag, 'cause I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag.